Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime or wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts, as always, thank you for letting me into your life and letting me be a part of it. I've said many times, and it remains just as true as the first time, the fact that anybody takes time out of their schedule to listen to anything that I have to say is just a remarkable thing. Sometimes I'm sitting, could be at my Shabbos table, could be someone else's Shabbos table, and everyone's talking and giving opinions, and no one even asks me what I think. No one even says, gee, Abba, what do you think? Nothing. I just sit there quietly. So someone said to me, don't you think it's strange that nobody asks what you think? And I said, no, I've got a podcast. I got thousands of people who care about what I think. This allows me the luxury to sit quietly. Some people, all they have to do is to sit and darshan at their table. You know what I mean? They're dying to be heard. Not me. And in fact, that is sort of mentioned in this episode's sponsorship. Sponsored anonymously. Thank you again. Dear Rabbi Orlofsky, I greatly enjoy listening to your podcast and even sometimes go back to listen to older episodes. They're a lot of fun. I have to say the truth, they're a lot of fun. When I used to have cassette tapes, so someone said to me, yours are the only cassette tapes that I buy. I said, really? Why is that? He says, because the other ones I could just take out of the gemach. You listen to them to one time, and that's it. He says, but yours are so much fun. You could just listen to them over and over again. So, yeah, that's true. And they are sponsoring this episode as a schus for a zivug hagun for the donor and for another single relative. These are the names. They don't want me to mention the names, but I will have them in mind. And in the schus of you being Marbitz Torah by sponsoring this episode, they should be zeicha to a zivug hagun, as you say. Next episode, we're going to be talking about our shas for shidduchim. Every year, we manage to push this particular event, so we should definitely consider that as a schus for people to get married. It's particularly learning shas for people to be able to find the shidduch. So keep them in mind. We'll talk about them next time. Also, just as a public service announcement, we always say at the end of the show to check out the website, rabbiorlofsky.com. I've started putting up my weekly shiurim on the website. I record them, and they are posted for the past weeks that I've been doing it. I started back in parshas Noach, and you might want to check those out. Each one's over an hour. I know this will come as a surprise that I find so much to talk about, and we're talking there about the parsha hashavua of those particular weeks they have passed, but the messages remain eternal. So we're going to talk about something that I think has significance in every aspect of our lives. I used to do a class called A Day in the Life of a Jew. What goes on in the regular day of the life of a Jew? And I said it's a regular day. There's no life events. You're not getting married. You're not getting buried. You didn't have a baby. You know what I mean? There's no circumcision, no pidyon ben, no permit. It's a regular day. There's no holidays. It's just, it's not an unusual day. You didn't kill anybody. You didn't start a romantic relationship with a cow. It's just a regular day. Yeah. When you think about what mitzvos, most of the mitzvahs are built in. Once you make your home kosher and you buy kosher food, so you don't even have to think about keeping kosher. If you're a girl and you've made whatever wardrobe adjustments are necessary for you to dress with the sneeze laws, so you just get up in the morning and get dressed. I say that facetiously. Of course, I have 8 daughters. No girl gets up in the morning and just gets dressed. They spend an enormous amount of time staring at all their clothes in their closet. And then they go to the second closet, and then they conclude they have nothing to wear. But assuming that the clothes that you have meet your basic sneeze requirements, if you're a young man, get up in the morning, put on your yarmulke and your tzitzis. The only thing that we would call ritualistic throughout the day is tefillah. And davening is the ongoing ritual that goes on during the day. There are other aspects to your day, but as far as what we would call a mitzvah, we would think of it as in terms of a ritual with tefillah. That's so much of what takes up our time. So I talked about this a little bit when we talked about Europe, but I want to try to get a little more practical. So I want to focus on an area, and it's essential to tefillah, but it's essential to our entire life, which I call God consciousness. God consciousness means that there's a God, and he exists, and he's part of our life. Now, there's something called the Sheish Mitzvahs Tamidiyos, 6 mitzvahs that you get without too much effort. One of them is just remembering that there's a God. Every time that you think that there's a God, that in of itself is such a powerful thing. You think that God is good, you're in awe of God, you love God, all these things are mitzvahs, you get them automatically. That's why it's an amazing thing when people try to make a cheshbon nefesh and calculate what they've done in the course of a day. We don't even count the Sheish Mitzvahs Tamidiyos and how many times we are racking up mitzvahs just by thinking that there's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I want to try to talk about that a little bit from a practical point of view. Rav Henoch Leibowitz once said that it's possible for a guy to sit and learn in Kollel an entire day and never once think about a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It didn't pop up in any of the sugyas. So I can sit there and work to get deeper and deeper into a particular area of halacha, a particular understanding. But where's HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all of this? Yeah, you have to remember that that's the central principle of everything. As the Mesilas Yesharim says at the beginning, where were we created? Lehisaneg al Hashem v'lehenais meziv shchinasai, shezeu ataniga amiti v'ayidin gadol mikol yidim shcholei matzei. To get pleasure from God and enjoy the Shekhinah, his divine presence, because that's the greatest pleasure of all. So being able to have a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu is the greatest thing that there possibly could be. So when we say Yiras Hashem, which is almost always translated poorly as fear of God. It's a big problem with English translations that they don't really capture the essence of what you're trying to say in Judaism. But fear of God is not Yiras Hashem, it's awe. And when we talk about awe, it's that wow factor. It's that wow. Kadosh Baruch Hu is awesome. That's awesome. Filled with awe. An unbelievable experience. And I gave the example before. That person gets ready to daven. Baruch atah Hashem. And there he is. Oh my God. I mean, that's you? So who'd you think you were talking to? Nobody. I didn't realize you were really there. Or as more than one from person said to me, I know there's a God, I just don't believe it. Which makes a lot of sense. That's the pasuk. V'yodata hayom v'hashevosei al levavecha. Know it and place it on your heart. It's not enough to know something intellectually. It has to become a emotional reality to us. And there are a lot of things that we know intellectually, but don't become an emotional reality. Smoking, right? Eventually, they never wrote it. When I was growing up, everybody smoked. Every room you went into had a haze over it of cigarette smoke, And at some point, they would write on the package, the Surgeon General has determined that smoking can be hazardous to your health. They changed that to smoking kills. Then they started putting on pictures of diseased lungs. Few and far between can possibly be the people who don't realize that smoking is going to kill you. My father died of lung cancer. I remember we were sitting Shiva and the doctor came. Someone said, do you think it was the smoking? He said, well, he had heart disease, lung cancer, and emphysema. I'm going to have to say yes. But my father started, he was born in 1925. He started smoking, 1930s. Everybody smoked then. No one even knew there was a problem. So he was stuck. In the end, he drowned because the blood clots were forming in his lungs so quickly that there was no way for them to get rid of them. And he literally just drowned to death. I watched him die. And that makes an impression on someone. And then I see frum people smoking. So, okay, you see an old frum man smoking, so you figure, okay, he's addicted. I see kids, teenagers, people in their 20s. I see somebody walking with their baby in a carriage, smoking a cigarette. Even though secondhand smoke is also a terrible, terrible thing. And I used to try to engage these people and have conversations with them. Most of the time they would get angry, but if they would bother even responding to me, they'd be like, I could stop anytime I want. So how about now? Not now, but any other time. And I'm thinking to myself, if you knew what it was to die of lung cancer, you probably wouldn't be so flippant. But it's not a reality. Not a reality. Two of my brothers smoked. They had heart attacks in their 40s. Me and my brother didn't smoke. We had our heart attack in our 50s. It's much better. But when you have in your 30s, it's pretty early. Both of them stopped smoking after their heart attack. My father was a addicted smoker. He used to say, it's not hard to quit smoking. I've done it dozens of times. Yeah, it's very hard for me. I remember once he had bronchitis and he's smoking, and choking and choking and smoking. He just couldn't stop. After his heart attack, he stopped smoking. So what happened? They had their heart attack and they had time to recover in the hospital. So they decided to finally read the Surgeon General report and they were like, "Ooh, Taka, this is dangerous." No, of course not. It's because now it's a reality to me. It's real. You don't sense the reality until then. It brings a consciousness. So I could know something intellectually, but till it becomes an emotional reality to me. Rabbi Tatz tells the story that when he was working in medicine in South Africa, this fellow came in who had this condition. I forgot the technical term for it. I apologize. Where if you smoke, it cuts off your blood flow to your limbs. He says, and it's very easy to cure. Just stop smoking. He says, I was in the hospital. And by the end, they had amputated both his arms and both of his legs. And he had his friends hook up attachment to his wheelchair so he could keep smoking, even though he didn't have any fingers and any arms to be able to put him in. The reality did not sink in. Not sink in. And I don't mean to minimize it. It's very hard. Rav Dessler was a chain smoker, and when he found out that it wasn't healthy, he tried to stop smoking. It was very hard. So he put a picture of his family on his desk, and whenever he reached for a cigarette, he would say, I don't want to make my wife a widow and my children orphans. He says, but I kept finding reasons to go outside of the office. Until I did a public neder, took a public vow that I wouldn't smoke. And I don't know what stopped me, he said, breaking the vow or getting caught for breaking my public vow. So I understand it. I am a diabetic, type 2 diabetic. Some people get born with it, big deal. I worked hard. Took me years to get this diabetes. And I have to be very careful. And sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm not. You know, when I'm being good, and my various, dietitians over the years have always told me, no, you don't, it's not put into terms of good and bad. But yeah, well, those of us, we know either you're being good or you're being bad. You know, when I'm being good, someone says, do you want a piece of cake? I said, I don't know, is it worth dying for? I don't know if it's worth dying for. I mean, it's pretty good, So, and every now and then they'd say, yes, this cake is worth dying for. I said, okay, then I'll try it. And only once they were right. Now, that was not the best that I ever had. I will tell you the best that I ever had. There was a bakery in Brooklyn called Lowen's. I didn't know this, but Itchy Lowenbrown was mishpacha. And he was the head of AJOP. Anyway, a really, really special person. But anyway, they made cream puffs. I was in 7th or 8th grade. We were at a Shabbaton at the Young Israel of Woodmere. Me and another kid were placed there. And I don't know whose house I was at. I don't remember. If you're still out there and you happen to be watching my podcast, I want to publicly apologize for this. But we sat down Erev Shabbos, and they pulled out a box of Lowen's cream puffs that they had bought for Shabbos. And they, gave us some juice and said, oh, help yourself. Me and my friend took a cream puff. And we looked at each other and went, I had never had anything so delicious in my life. And the two of us finished the whole box and just polished it off. I apologize. I'm very sorry, especially because they went out of business. Even if I could find you, they don't make them anymore. I have never in my life had a cream puff that good. I've tried. I've bought them from every bakery I can find. I have never found anything on par with Lowen's cream puffs. If there's somebody out there who knows how to make them, it might kill me, but I will go with a smile on my face. But, okay, so I know I'm not supposed to eat these. Oh, I love cologne cream. Oh, my gosh. If anybody knows, maybe when he was learning at Eretz Yisrael, Benji Reisman, who's, of course, Rabbi Reisman's son, I did a Shabbaton for Rabbi Reisman Shul. But more important, his grandfather owns Reisman's Bakery. And I was talking once how in Eretz Yisrael there are no prune hamantashen. They haven't figured out that concept over here. So he sent me a box from his grandfather's bakery of prune hamantashen. It was a very, very special moment. My 32 years of living in Eretz Yisrael, I'd have to say that was definitely one of my most special moments. Davening at the Kaisel was also nice, but those prune hamantashen. So if anybody out there knows somebody who could still make the Lowen hamantashen, Lowen cream puffs, I'm not saying I'm going to eat them all, on a regular basis, but save it for a special occasion and, take a little extra medication to, another shot of insulin. So, okay, I know I'm not supposed to be eating these things. That's when I'm good. When I'm good, I say, is it worth dying for? Other times, I don't even think about it. When I'm being bad. So, So the point is that you know something intellectually, but to make that a reality. So people say to me, I know there's a God. I just don't believe it. So if he was to suddenly appear to you, and there he is, it would be a mind-blowing experience. Because even though you know intellectually, but the emotional reality is so much more difficult. So obviously when we daven, right, Shavisi Hashem Lanegdi Tamid, we're always supposed to picture that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in front of us. But specifically when we're davening, when we're in tefillah, we're supposed to feel like we're talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there's a give and take. So how do you develop this? When I'm talking about God consciousness. So I want to give you some techniques that I've employed in my own life. I've never found anybody who was able to give me these tips personally. But I know from my own life that I've tried them and they are effective. I've given them to other people who have tried them and they said they're also effective. So let's start at the beginning. Intellectually, we know there's a God. That's the first step. First step is intellect. If you're not really sure if God exists, then you have to spend at least the intellectual effort to see if it's true or not. I had a guy once in Or Sameach, and he says to me, where's all the happiness in Judaism? And I said it comes from having a relationship with God, this Anegal Hashem, right? Having that relationship. He says, well, I'm not sure if I believe in God. I said, then I have nothing to offer you. If you like your filter fish, great. You want to eat a matzah, enjoy yourself. Knock yourself out. But if there's not a God and it's not real, then the whole thing is make-believe. If there's no God and we're just keeping this going for fun, forget about it. Jewish culture is not enough to keep the Jewish people around. It's just not that. Our culture is just not that much fun. Let's call a spade a spade. That's why we raise money to get Jews to teach them about their culture. Ever hear Italians raising money to get people to eat lasagna? No, people like lasagna. But you have to pay people to eat that jarred gefilte fish because they keep wondering, what's the goo in the jar? And any answer you come up with just doesn't sound good. So it's a challenge to be able to come up with something that's going to be meaningful. So we pay people to come, and listen to klezmer and dance the hora and eat gefilte fish, but nobody wants to do it. You understand? The culture is not enough. So if there's a God and this whole thing is true and it makes sense, I understand. If not, what's the point? Mati Berger, this is years ago when Reform and Reconstructionists still cared about intermarriage. So this Reconstructionist rabbi said to him, he says, I tell people that they should marry Jewish, and they say I'm a racist. He says, you are a racist. He says, but you tell people to marry Jewish. He goes, that's different. I actually believe in this. I think there's a God. He gave the Torah. There's a mission of the Jewish people. You're just a cultural Jew. It's just racism for you. So I have to do the intellectual effort. And I have to sit down and try to look at all of the evidence for God's existence. Shach once said to the Brisker Rav, who needs emunah? Any intelligent person can figure out there's a God who gave the Torah. Just based on the evidence that exists. And he answered him, you're right, emunah begins when it doesn't make sense. But the concept of figuring out that there's a God, well, any intelligent person could do that. But you have to do the work. You can't just say there's a God because I heard there was a God. You got to figure it out for yourself. According to the Rambam, that's the first mitzvah in the Torah. Anochi Hashem Elokecha is to know that God exists. I have to figure it out intellectually. So that's the first step. But once you know that God exists, the next step is making it a reality. Now, it's always difficult having a relationship with someone that you don't see. and who you talk to and you don't get an answer from. So, I learned in Eretz Yisrael, 1975. We used to write aerograms back home. You could write an actual letter, but then you had to pay for a stamp. Aerograms were cheaper. It's a piece of tissue paper. You would write very small on it, and then you fold it over. Half the words came out with the glue, and it got ripped off. Didn't make a difference. Took 2 weeks to get there, 2 weeks for you to get an answer. By the time you got the answer, you didn't remember what you wrote in the letter. So it was mostly just to, let your parents know you were still alive. Yeah. If you had a really good friend, you would make them a tape. You would get a tape recorder, and you would record an entire tape for them. This is very hard. There's nobody there. You're just talking to the tape recorder. It's 8 o'clock. We finished the afternoon Seder, and we had dinner. And I just wanted to make you a cassette to let you know I was thinking of you and to let you know what's going on here in Yeshiva. It's 8:01. We learned, obviously, it's what we do in Yeshiva, morning Seder and afternoon Seder. And now we're going to have night Seder. And I'll get back to you later. You sit there talking to nobody. I know people who cannot leave messages on answering machines. Hi, this is so-and-so. Please leave a message after the beep. Beep! They just hang up the phone. It's too hard for them to talk. So I'm supposed to be having a conversation with somebody who doesn't exist. And I say, when people say to me, how do I know what God is? How do I have a relationship with God? I said, try talking to him. They said, I daven. I said, I didn't say daven. Daven becomes meaningful once you already have a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I said, talk to him as if he really exists. So I know God exists. I didn't tell you know that God exists. You know God exists. Now talk to him as if it's real. Not just that you know it. Have a conversation. It's very hard. It's very hard. It's very hard. Yeah. It's one of those things where I can honestly say, when people say easier said than done. No, it's just as hard to say it as to do it, because doing it is saying it. So try talking to God. Okay. David Orlofsky here. Well, you know that. Anyway, I just wanted to share with you what's going on in my life, what's happening here, Very uncomfortable. You're talking to somebody who's invisible. You know intellectually that he's listening, but you certainly don't feel anything. Keep at it. Talk to God all day, whenever you have a chance. I'm not saying do this in front of people. They might think you're a little crazy, but there's usually some downtime. If you're nervous, take out your phone, pretend you're talking to somebody. And you have to start talking to God. Now, if you stick at this, you got to stick to it. You're going to move to the second phase. And the second phase is you feel like someone's listening to you. Now, you know what that means. Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People lists as one of his 7 habits, active listening. This is people who don't just listen to you, but you can feel they listen to you. You can sense that they're listening to you. Now, there's some people who have a lot of trouble with this. I have certain people, now I've never been one of those people. I find it very disruptive and it throws off my train of thought. So when someone's talking to me, I tend to listen very intensely. So somebody will call me on the phone and they'll talk to me. And I don't keep going, I'm just listening. And you have people every now and then, I get a phone call from them, and every half a minute, like, hello, are you there? Hello? Yeah, I'm here. Oh, okay. No, because I didn't hear anything. No, nor will you, because I'm busy listening to you. Anyway, so I was there. Hello? I'm here. I'm still here. They don't feel that I'm there. Sometimes one of my kids say to me, I feel like you're not listening to me. I say, what? But the point is that sometimes you're talking to somebody and you sense that they hear you, even if you don't see them. Like I say, it could be on a phone call. You're just sensing that they're listening to you. If you stick at this and you talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, eventually you will see or you will feel that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is listening to you. It's internal. No way to measure this. But just like you sometimes talk to a person and you know they're listening to you, sometimes you talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and you sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hearing you and listening to you. Now, if you keep working at this, the third thing is you'll start to get answers. Now, if you start hearing voices, you have serious problems. I would definitely check myself into an institution. Could be lithium will help, but there's a problem. You shouldn't be hearing voices. Yeah. When I say start getting answers, it means you start to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your life doing things directly for you that are weird. I've had people who were hanging around me, and one guy put it so interesting. He goes, I feel like there's a rip in the time-space continuum around you. And I said, no, that's just because my buddy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, does stuff for me all the time. And my kids know it. It's one of my expressions. You know, all of a sudden we'll go someplace and a car will pull out and we'll have a parking spot right in the front. And someone says, wow, that's unbelievable. I said, nah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does stuff like that for me all the time. And he does. He does so many things. Like I say, we talked about last time, but every now and then there's things that are out of the ordinary where you say, wow, that's unusual. Of Galinsky during the Gulf War. So someone said, all the missiles that were falling and nobody was getting killed. He says, it's siyata d'shmaya. He goes, no. If you have to get to the bus and the bus pulls up just when you get there and you run and you catch the bus, that's siyata d'shmaya. If you're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, and all of a sudden the bus pulls up, that's a nace. These are nisim, right? There's something in between making the bus and the bus magically appearing where it's unusual siyata d'shmaya, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking out for you. And when you incorporate HaKadosh Baruch Hu into your life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is more likely to let you see him, as it says in Shir Shirim, peeking through the cracks. Such a powerful idea. When my kids were little and I would take them to Gan, so we're talking about they could be 2, 3 years old, One kid would say, don't wait for me. I would come up in the elevator and they'd say, don't wait for me. I say, okay. And I would, as if get back into the elevator, but I would stay and I would watch through the bars in the stairwell. I'd watch them walking to God, and they would turn around to see if I was there. But they didn't see me peeking through the cracks. I guess because they didn't expect to find me there. But if you look, you could have seen me peeking through the cracks. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the pasuk says, is peeking through the cracks. He's watching us. And if you develop this consciousness, you can see him there. Now, when you start to sense HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your life, and it's a two-way relationship, because you're talking to him and you feel like you're being heard, and then you start to see things in your life that is in a reaction to that. Now, when you get up to daven, the whole davening is a completely different thing. Tefillah is a different experience. When you know the person that you're talking to is really there and really listening, and that, it could be that what I'm going to say is going to have a profound impact. Okay. We'll go to the question and answer section of the show. Anonymous asks, can you please explain the whole concept around sotah? It can't really be about a couple having an affair and only the woman gets punished, can it? No, can't be. Next question. So let's understand the concept. The story of the sotah does not exist in a vacuum, right? The husband sees that his wife is having an intimate relationship with Bob. I have to say this because I got a question where someone says usually when you make up like a name, you take Harry Rabinowitz. You know, says, is there any significance to that? Because that was my grandfather's name. No, I'm not mitkaven for your grandfather. The reason one of my go-to names is Harry Rabinowitz is because of a joke that I heard when I was a kid, where there was an appeal, and this guy stands up and says, "I, Harry Rabinowitz of Rabinowitz Ladies Wear, located on Orchard Street. This week we're having a special sale on skirts to hereby donate $1 million anonymously." So that name Harry Rabinowitz stays there. But my go-to names for just people when I talk about a guy, it's usually Bob. There's something about the name Bob that I find so, basically harmless. Hey there, Bob. Let's turn to our correspondent. Yes, Bob. And for a girl, my go-to name is Susie. Yeah, Susie. Unless I'm dealing with more than one girl, in which case it's Khani, Bani, and Shani. Anyway, so he sees that his wife is hanging around with Bob. And he says to his wife, "I'm not comfortable with you hanging around with Bob." She goes, "Oh, don't be silly. We're just friends." He goes, "I know, but every now and then you lock yourself in a room with Bob long enough in order to have relations. And I got to say, I'm real uncomfortable with that." And she's like, "Oh, poo. We're just playing Othello." Anyway, her husband brings over two witnesses and says, "I do not want you to lock yourself in a room with Bob long enough to have relations." Now, to my mind, I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. You want to go with Bob and have a cappuccino? I'm okay with that. I'm not thrilled, but okay. But when the two of you lock yourself in a room, I get a little edgy. So, sure enough, two witnesses see her in a locked room. Locked. They try the door. It's locked. With Bob, long enough for them to be able to have relations. At that point, she is now forbidden to her husband. It's not just a jealous suspicion. I told her in front of two witnesses not to lock herself up in a room with this guy. And she did. So that's it. According to the Torah, at that point, they're forbidden. They have to get divorced. Parenthetically, that's true today. If a husband says to his wife, "I don't want you locking yourself up in a room long enough to have relations with Bob," and she does, and two witnesses testify, they have to get divorced. There's no way out. So the woman protests her innocence. "Nothing happened, I tell you. Nothing happened. He was showing me pictures of his children. There was nothing here." So we say, "Listen, lady, you got to admit, you crossed some lines here." She says, "I'll do anything to prove my innocence." And they're like, "Listen, just get a divorce. Maybe marry Bob. Get off your life." She says, No, I am sure I'm innocent." She has the option to go to the Beis Hamikdash and drink this potion made up of dirt and the name of God and water. And if she wants, she can drink it to prove her innocence. And if she's innocent, she'll be okay. And if she's not innocent, then she'll fall apart. Not fall apart like when you get bad news, like literally fall apart. Pieces are going to start falling off. Parenthetically, the same thing will happen to Bob. Bob also gets it. Yeah. So at any time, I keep telling her, you want to just drop out? You could just drop out. They keep giving her options to drop out, But if she wants to prove her innocence, the Torah gives it. And the way it's presented is that God allows his name to be erased into this water to try to make peace between a husband and a wife. So, so it's not that the woman's getting punished. We don't drag her in and force her to drink this stuff. We say, listen, you have broken all mores in your marriage. A woman who's locking herself up with a man who's not her husband long enough to have relations, you could say it was just poor judgment. But when the husband tells her specifically not to, and she does, at that point, there is, as we say, raglayim ladava. There is a basis to this suspicion. It's not just a jealous husband who's nervous. He really is afraid that his wife is having an affair. And that is the concept of sotah. And like I say, it all goes up to her. If she wants to say, I don't need to take this. I don't have to be abused this way. I don't have to prove anything to you. I'm going off on my way. Come with me, Bob. So they get divorced, and hey, better luck the next time, Okay, next question. Tova Black asks, is there a substantial difference in the Ashkenazi good hechsherim in Israel, or is it all politics? Oh my goodness. Well, Uncle Dave's going to get himself into a little trouble now, I'm afraid. I spoke to Mashgiach in Erzl, and I said, what's the best hashgacha? And he says, for sure the OU. I said, the OU? Why? He says, because with the exception of the OU, every hashgacha is a private hashgacha, which means someone's making money on it. The Orthodox Union has a separate Kashrus department that is run by professionals. They don't get a bonus if they sign up a new company. They don't make money if they do something that's new. They're providing a service, and it's being run by professionals. And that, well, he says, they don't do everything to the highest levels, but whatever they do, is trustworthy. Other hashgachas are privately run. Basically, every other hashgacha in America is privately run. People in the kashrus field have said to me that the most reliable hashgacha in the world is KJ, Kahal Das Yishurin, because they're yekis and they don't know from any shtick. We do it on the one way, like we did it in Frankfurt. Anyway, so they don't fool around. And that's why a lot of the kashrus scandals in America were uncovered by KJ, because before they will use any product, they check it out personally to check up on the other hashgachas. And that's why they have found problems. So back in the 1980s, we had the famous vinegar scandal. If anyone's old enough to remember the vinegar scandal, there was one of the from hashgachas that had a vinegar that came from France under its hashgacha, and all the from companies were using it because they trust each other, except Kahal Das Yishurin, who are yekis and don't trust anybody. That's why there's an expression, why are you being such a yekka? That's where it comes from. And so they called up the company in France, and they said, going into Pesach, does this vinegar have any grain in it? And they're like, yeah, sure. So they stop and they say, does it have any grape products in it? And he says, yeah, sure. He says, is that kosher wine that you're using? He goes, no. He says, well, what does the mashgiach say? He says, what mashgiach? He says, the supervising rabbi. They said, what supervising rabbi? The company called us up and asked if we would like to have a rabbinic certification. They sent us a form. We filled it out, and they sent us a certificate. And we pay the money every month. So it got out that this vinegar that everybody had been using was treif. It was treif. And there's a tremendous pressure to give hashgacha to things. Read Rabbi Blumenkrantz Zatzal's Pesach guide, which is still coming out, even though he's not around. Similar to, there was this marshmallows that were kosher for Pesach that the Rav had passed away and still had his hashgacha on it. So I guess it was divine supervision. Anyway, we answer to a higher authority. But in any event, so if you go to the Rabbi Blumenkrantz guide, which is still coming out, he has a whole section on problems that exist in kosher hotels. And the problems are extensive. When I went for Pesach to Gateways, so Kahal Das Yishurim was the hashgacha. That's why I felt comfortable. When I used to go to the Granite Bismanoi, the mashgichim were all from Chavetz Chaim. And Chavetz Chaim is about as imaginative as Kahal Das Yishurim now. They also like this, there's no shtick involved. Yeah. When I taught in Derech, I had two guys in my shir who could not read Hebrew, who were mashgichim in a famous Pesach hotel. And they said to me, listen, we don't really know too much about kashrus, but me and our friends, we wouldn't eat there. We went out and bought ourselves a frying pan and made ourselves eggs. We wouldn't eat anything that was cooked in that kitchen. Just listen, I'm not a big Talmud Chacham or anything, but I can tell treif when I see it. Anyway, so when you have a private institution, yeah. Now, here in Israel, we do better than that. We take a private institution and mix it together with politics. So, are there politics? Yes. Is it only politics? No. It's always an issue of Kashrus. And therefore you have to see. So sometimes it's politics. What do I mean? Okay, I didn't check out anything I'm about to say. It could be everything I'm saying is sheker. I'm just telling you that up front. But this is not, you know me already. I just repeat what I hear, right? Yeah. So there was a bakery in Brooklyn where evidently there's some difficulty between the Satma and the Bells. So they got two hashgachas, one from Satma, one from Bells. So somebody opened up a bakery here. It was in Kiryat Bells. It's near the Oshad over there in Shefa Mahadran. And they called Moishi's. And they also wanted to get a hashgacha from Bells and from Satma. In this case, it would mean the bedats of the Eder Charedis and the Bells hashgacha. And the bedat said, if you get a Bells hashgacha, we will not give you a hashgacha. And he said, no, we'll buy everything that you want us to buy, because if you have a Bells hashgacha, we will not give you a bedat's hashgacha. Yeah, that's politics. That's politics. Yeah. There was a hechsher that was started by a Haredi political party. I don't know its status today, but for a long time, everyone knew it was unreliable. And but it was sponsored by this political party. Why was it unreliable? Because they gave the positions out to people who had worked for the election campaign. So you want to reward these people by giving them positions. They gave them positions in their Kashrus organization. They were not experts in Kashrus. So sometimes the problems are politics, but not just politics. Sometimes they're problems just of politics, and sometimes they're problems of actual Kashrus. And you have to know what and where, and it is a minefield. I spoke to one Dayan, and he said to me, I said, what can you trust without any question? And he said to me, the Reuben Hashgacha. And that's why a lot of people trust the Reuben Hashgacha. Somebody told me that he was at a bar mitzvah of the son of one of his mashgichim, and the guy who he gave the hashgacha to, his factory, he gave him an envelope. Reuben ran over and said, give it back to him. He says, it's a bar mitzvah gift. He says, no. I pay you. He doesn't pay you. You don't take any money from this man. Give him back the envelope. So there was a Reuben restaurant. My son was there. And one of the people from Kashrus walked in, and everyone dropped what they were doing and backed away. On the plane, there's this TV show of this cooking show called Chopped, And when they say, time's up, everyone has to drop what they're doing, move away from the table. That's what it was like. Everyone dropped what they're doing, moved away. And he comes, he's looking around. My son says, what's going on? He goes, oh, you don't understand. He came in here once. He didn't like something. He kicked everybody out of the store, locked the store, and wouldn't reopen until he was happy. There was a hall that had a Reuben hashgacha. And the guy in charge told the mashgiach, yeah, we don't have a party tomorrow. We don't have a party tomorrow. And it was suspicious. You have to be suspicious. If the Muncie chicken debacle teaches us one thing, it's that when you're a mashgiach, you got to be suspicious. So he stops in the next day, and sure enough, there's a party going on under the badatz of the Eidah Charedis. I'm not saying badatz Eidah Charedis is not kosher. I'm just telling you. This was an exclusive Reuben place. So he called up somebody from the head office. He came in, walked into the guy's thing, took down his te'udah, ripped it up, said, you are no longer under Reuben. And he says, no, this is a separate badatz. He says, no problem. No problem. You want to be under badatz? Be under badatz. He says, but I have people who booked parties. They want Reuben. He goes, tell them you're a crook and a liar. And so you don't have Reuben. Or I guess you could forge a certificate and put it up for them. He says, but can't you reconsider? He says, call me in 6 months and I'll think about it. So, as one person said to me, either everything's kosher or everything's treif. I don't think that that's true. But are there problems? There are definitely problems, because as bad as profit motive is, politics and profit motive is even worse. So are there problems? There are problems. Caveat emptor. Buyer beware. Ask questions. Things are difficult, and if the new Kashrus legislation that they want to pass gets passed, it's going to be even worse. Okay, well, on that happy note, on that cheerful thought, I want to thank everybody for your attention and for listening. And if you want to find out more about this show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You could leave a comment. You can send an email. You could submit a question for the question and answer. You could sponsor an episode. You could listen to the Rabbi Orlofsky theme song. You could listen to my son's song that he wrote for his mother's birthday. And that's about it. We hope to see you next time. I'm Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.